from the Mercy One studio.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. It's time to hear from the top Christian litigators in the nation who have come forward to tell us the truth and help us defend our faith.
Hear ye, hear ye. All rise. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano, is in session.
And good Thursday morning from the virtual Mercy One studios in West Des Moines. I'm Deacon Mike Mano, joining you via Skype, along with my co-host, Gina Noel, who's at another undisclosed location, joining us by Skype. We seem to be doing this every week now, Gina.
Well, it is more difficult to be out of the studio, but it is for everybody's best interest. So,
yeah, I think so too. So
hopefully our listeners will stand by us through this process.
I'm hoping so. This is our last broadcast before Christmas. I hope you've got all your Christmas shopping done and everything.
Well, we're getting there. Thank goodness for the delivery systems, the FedExes and UPSs of the world.
Yeah, I've been doing shopping online, and that's about all I've been able to do thus far. Looks like we have an interesting program today. Again, this is going to be our last program of the year, but we're going to talk to Ashley McGuire, a senior fellow with the Catholic Association, about some of the appointments that are being made by Joe Biden to his cabinet. And then we have Benjamin Zeisloft from Campus Reform going to talk to us about a University of Iowa dental student who was expressed some conservative views and was being disciplined for that, or apparently was going to be disciplined for that, and then some LGBT threats to the accreditation of Christian schools.
Well, it sounds like it'll be a wonderful show. I'm wondering, can you hear me, Deacon Mike?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. I know we've covered a couple of different college campuses and the free speech issues of our students, which is so important for us because when free speech is under attack, expression of our faith is under attack. And so I'm very curious to see when these cases come forward, how our administrations and our government handle them.
Right. Well, of course, we've seen with the University of Iowa in the past, there have been several instances where they've kind of gotten slapped down by district courts. This one looks like we're going to avoid some of that, but Benjamin will be with us and talk to us about that a little bit later. He's got two stories that he wrote for Campus Reform that we want to go over: the University of Iowa dental student, and then the threats to accreditation for Christian schools, which is a threat that's come from the I guess it's the Human Rights Society or whatever it is. He'll be able to fill us in and all that.
That's right. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Ashley again. She's on top of all the contemporary issues, especially the appointment for the Health and Human Services Director, Xavier Becerra. I'm very interested in knowing about him and how it feels like there's a lot of California leadership being appointed into the new administration, and we know very little about them, although we know a lot about the California policies and administration. So it'll be interesting to see how that meshes.
Well, Becerra was a congressman out there for a number of years, and he followed Kamala Harris into the Attorney General's office and kind of picked up on what she was doing there, going after David Daleiden, and trying to close down alternative to abortion clinics, the pro-life clinics. So he's got quite a history behind him. And like someone else we know, he claims to be a good, devout Catholic.
Well, he was definitely raised as a Catholic, and we'll see how that plays into his policy positions. I'm anxious to hear from Ashley on that.
Yeah. And they're good folks out there at the Catholic Association. We've had them on before, and this probably won't be the last time we'll have them on. Last time this year, anyway.
I'm actually reading Ashley's book, so
get her on to discuss that book.
Right. As soon as I'm done with that, we'll definitely have a discussion about it, because it definitely defines a lot of the secular traditions that are becoming more normalized.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Do you have a prayer to open us up with this morning?
I do. A prayer for peace today. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God of peace, bring your peace to our violent world, peace in the hearts of all men and women, and peace among the nations of this earth. Turn to your way of love those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. Strengthen us in hope, and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for a world where true peace and love reign among the nations and in the hearts of all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. That's a beautiful prayer, and I know we've gotten a lot of compliments on that. I think that comes originally from Benedict XVI.
The Pope Benedict. Yes, that's right.
Right. That's very good.
I think it's very timely.
It certainly is. It certainly is. All right, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to have Ashley McGuire with us. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, light commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
What is the best gift ever? Giving a Catholic education is at the top of my list. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. With over 40 years' experience, Dental Associates is a group dental practice with the mission of promoting optimum health and well-being to all patients, providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic dentistry for the entire family. Message underwritten by Dr. Kenton Gleichman, Dr. Steve Karbaka, Dr. Christine Mulcahy, and Dr. Ben Nagel. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. Online at DesMoines-DentalAssociates.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Storm Alert Weather is provided by Divine Treasures. Divine Treasures is a Catholic book and gift store serving the Des Moines community for over 25 years. Their mission is to help Catholics know, love, and keep their faith in our Lord Jesus Christ and His Church. Divine Treasures is where you can find great Catholic books, beautiful Bibles, rosaries, jewelry, statues, and religious gifts for those memorable events in your life. Divine Treasures, 5701 Hickman Road, Des Moines, 515-255-5230. Thank you to Divine Treasures for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Thank you, Skeffington's Formal Wear, for sponsoring Dowling Catholic High School football. In business since 1951, Skeffington's Formal Wear offers quality service, style, and selection, providing tuxedos, suits, and casual groom attire for weddings, proms, and any other special occasion. Skeffington's Formal Wear, with convenient locations in Des Moines, West Des Moines, Davenport, Coralville, and Ankeny. All locations are family-owned and operated by members in their respective communities, fitting you for life celebrations. Online at skeffingtons.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. And you're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. And with us now is Ashley McGuire, Senior Fellow with the Catholic Association. Ashley, welcome back to the program.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Before we start, let's remind everybody what the Catholic Association is.
Oh, sure. We're a lay organization that defends the church in the public square.
Good enough. We wanted to talk to you today about some of the appointments that the new president-elect, or some people don't believe he's president-elect yet, but whatever, that Joe Biden is making to his potential cabinet. And one in particular is Xavier Becerra as HHS secretary.
Yeah, Xavier Becerra is the Attorney General of California, and Biden has chosen him to run the Department of Health and Human Services, which is a hugely important agency. And Becerra is an extremely problematic candidate. He's somebody who aggressively prosecuted the Little Sisters of the Poor in court, taking them all the way to the Supreme Court, trying to make them pay for things like abortion pills in their health care plans. He sued pro-life pregnancy centers, trying to force them to do things like advertise for abortion. And he's just generally somebody who's very hostile to religious liberty in the Catholic Church. And that leaves a lot of Catholics wondering, why would Joe Biden, after campaigning on his Catholic faith, pick somebody who's so anti-Catholic to run an agency that's going to have a very direct impact over the Catholic Church and many, not just Catholics, but Christians and Americans of goodwill who don't want, pro-life pharmacists who don't want to have to be forced to dispense abortion pills, doctors who don't want to be forced to perform abortions. These are the people that are going to be threatened by someone like Xavier Becerra running that agency.
Now, do we know if he still claims to be a Catholic?
I don't know. I don't know if I've heard him say that lately, so I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, we know his predecessor, who he's followed into the Attorney General's office, Kamala Harris, has, I don't know how you look at it, but from what I've seen, she's probably about the most anti-Catholic senator there now, ready to take over as vice president. It seems to me that Xavier is kind of following in her footsteps.
Oh, absolutely. Kamala Harris was the one who decided to prosecute David Daleiden, who was the citizen journalist who exposed Planned Parenthood. And this was, I believe, the first time ever that a citizen journalist who was a whistleblower on major corporate crimes, and in this case we're talking about their involvement in the illegal harvesting and sale of fetal organs, was prosecuted for that instead of being applauded for, exposing the criminal activities of such a huge corporation like Planned Parenthood. And Xavier Becerra picked right back up where she was. You're absolutely right. He was chosen to replace her, and you're absolutely right that she is arguably one of the most anti-Catholic politicians that we have. When we had judges come before her on the Senate Judiciary Committee, in one instance, she argued that somebody, because of their membership in the Knights of Columbus, should be disqualified for being a federal judge because of what the Knights of Columbus believe.
That's probably why I was never appointed a judge, because I'm
Are
a
you
Knight
in
of
the
Columbus.
Knights?
Yeah.
Oh, good for you. Well, they're a wonderful organization.
Going back to the prosecution of David Daleiden, there was an exception in the California law about these videos that he was prosecuted under that said specifically that if you showing criminal activity, that was exempt from coverage of this law. And that's exactly what he was doing, is showing criminal activity, which is the sale of baby parts, which is a violation of federal and state law in California. And yet he was still prosecuted by Harris and later Becerra.
Right. No. And, I think it's worth thinking about the fact that this is a man who's going to be arguably aside from the president and the vice president, the most powerful person in this country when it comes to Americans' health care. And how, it's worth looking at how he reacted to a major corporation being exposed for criminal behavior that jeopardized the health and safety of American women, Planned Parenthood, and he chose to defend the corporation and prosecute the whistleblower. What else is he? Is that the position he's going to take in other instances where you have major corporations endangering the health and safety of Americans? Is he the type of person who's going to side with the major corporation, who more than likely is going to be an entity that's contributed to his political ambitions? I mean, you look at Planned Parenthood, and they're one of the largest political donors in this country to Democrat politicians, because then Democrats, like Xavier Becerra, turn around and protect them when they're exposed for criminal wrongdoing.
All right. Yeah, and then the attack on the Little Sisters of the Poor. I believe he continued that attack after they won their first round in the Supreme Court, went back after them, and then tried to keep them out of the case so they couldn't speak up on their own behalf.
Right. They had to go to the Supreme Court on 3 separate occasions. In each occasion, they won. But you're absolutely right that he sort of obsessively pursued them. And again, it really, and let's talk about the fact that he continued to pursue them, even after the pandemic broke out. So these are an order of nuns that are caring for the most destitute, poor, elderly people in this country. These are people who would basically otherwise either die homeless or die in destitute poverty or in some terribly run government institution. And these wonderful nuns take them in, take care of them, meet their needs, and provide them with a happy, peaceful, dignified death. And these are the people who were, as we all know, were disproportionately affected by this pandemic. The elderly, especially the elderly without good access to health care and family support. These are and their homes, the homes of the Little Sisters of the Poor, had many deaths, including some of the Little Sisters themselves. So these are the kind of, these women are American heroes. They're pandemic heroes. They're American heroes. And these are the kinds of people that Xavier Becerra thinks it's worth the time, taxpayer funding to prosecute because of their religious beliefs. They don't want to provide things like abortion pills in their health care plans.
Yeah, and they've been doing this for over 100 years, the Little Sisters.
Right. Ashley, to both you and Mike are attorneys, and so it's very understandable that you understand the legal side of Javier's career and his prosecutions and cases. But what is it about an attorney general to be specific, from a large state like California, and his background and experiences that would bring him to the Department of Health and Human Services?
Well, that's a really good question that a lot of people are asking, because arguably being a lawyer doesn't in any way qualify you to run a healthcare agency. And, for people who are less concerned with his hostility to religious liberty and his treatment of pro-life Americans, are also asking a similar question, is what are his credentials to run this agency? And, you have someone like Susan Collins, who's going to be a key vote on his confirmation in the Senate. That was the question that I saw her quoted as saying, is she was surprised to see someone who has no background in healthcare chosen to run this hugely influential agency that's going to have direct impact on the lives of Americans. Things like drug pricing, things like how quickly we get vaccines and therapeutic medicines approved in the middle of a pandemic. What does he know about those things? And so far, the evidence is nothing. And arguably, his only sort of background when it comes to healthcare is suing Americans on reproductive health issues, quote unquote. So he's sort of an ideological attack dog on things like contraception and abortion, and those seem to be his only credentials, if you want to call them that, when it comes to healthcare. So I think that's why you have so many Catholics and Christians saying, whoa, this is a really shocking choice to run this agency, especially when Joe Biden campaigned on this idea of unifying the country, healing the soul of the nation. Why then does he go around and pick arguably the most polarizing figure he could find, who has no credentials and no background in that specific field, to run such an important agency? I think, unfortunately, it's an indicator of the kind of administration that Joe Biden actually intends to run.
Makes me want to, I should have thought of this before, but Joe Biden's been doing introductions of each of his appointees to the public. I wonder how he introduced him and how he qualified him for this particular appointment.
Well, the only thing I know about how he introduced him was that he couldn't even pronounce his name correctly in the introduction. So
okay.
You have that. And, some people are arguing that he was, chosen because as a sort of diversity choice. But if you're going to do that, at least pronounce his name correctly.
Yeah.
So based on what we know of his history with Health and Human Services, how does this negatively or positively, which I can't see the positive, but maybe you can find something, Ashley, how will it affect people of faith?
Well, I think people of faith should be very concerned, and I think they should be very vocal in their concern, because we have to remember that he has to be confirmed by the Senate. And, so this is an example of why the Georgia Senate race is so important, because if we have 51 votes in the Senate and they agree that he is an unqualified ideologue, they have the votes to stop him from becoming the head of that agency. And so, I think there's very real reasons for people of faith to be very concerned that an agency that is supposed to be there to protect Americans and work for the good of Americans when it comes to health care and safety in this country, that he would use that agency and weaponize the agency against people of faith. That's exactly what the Obama administration did for 8 years. And let's not forget that Joe Biden was Obama's vice president. Joe Biden was a part of that administration. He sat there for 8 years while President Obama weaponized that agency against Americans, weaponized the Affordable Care Act, and used it to essentially provoke Americans of faith, so much so that it led to the largest class action lawsuit, a religious liberty lawsuit in American history. So Joe Biden himself doesn't exactly have a great track record when it comes to religious liberty and healthcare.
Yeah,
but,
I'm a little scared about some of his other appointments that he may be making too. I think they're probably going to all follow along the same line, which means we have a lot to worry about.
I agree. I think this one in particular is going to have a particularly acute effect on Americans of faith because of the potential entanglements on some of these really controversial and divisive issues. I think the areas to watch would be conscience rights and healthcare. That's a really big one, and this last administration did a very good job of actually enforcing and strengthening regulatory protections for healthcare workers. And someone like a Xavier Becerra, I can guarantee you, will go in and undo those protections.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. There's another appointment that I'm concerned about too, but it's not one that Biden is going to make. It's one that Governor Newsom is going to make. If Kamala Harris has to resign her Senate seat to become vice president, there's going to be a newly appointed senator from California, and the governor is going to make that appointment. And I'm kind of shuddering about what Governor Newsom might do with that appointment.
Well, I think you're right to be concerned there too, because again, the track record of attorney generals coming from California and senators coming from California, it seems to be sort of a pipeline of anti-Catholic bigots.
Yeah, I think that describes them correctly. I think it looks, by my timing here, that we're almost out of time here, Ashley. We want to take a minute or not right now, but we want to take a minute later on and get you back and talk about the book that you wrote that Gina has. And we'll be calling you again to get back, but want to thank you for joining us today. We certainly appreciate your insight into what's going on. And we're going to be following this as time goes on.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on today.
Thank you. Ashley McGuire, Senior Fellow at the Catholic Association. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, and we will be back in about 3 minutes.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. With over 40 years' experience, Dental Associates is a group dental practice with the mission of promoting optimum health and well-being to all patients, providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic dentistry for the entire family. Message underwritten by Dr. Kenton Gleichman, Dr. Steve Karbaka, Dr. Christine Mulcahy, and Dr. Ben Nagel. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. Online at DesMoines-DentalAssociates.com.
What is the best gift ever? Giving a Catholic education is at the top of my list. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. Information about Pharmatan and other products at imogeneingredients.com. Paul and Paul are members of St. Augustine's Knights of Columbus and encourage their brother knights to keep standing for their faith.
Thank you, Skeffington's Formal Wear, for sponsoring Dowling Catholic High School football. In business since 1951, Skeffington's Formal Wear offers quality service, style, and selection, providing tuxedos, suits, and casual groom attire for weddings, proms, and any other special occasion. Skeffington's Formal Wear, with convenient locations in Des Moines, West Des Moines, Davenport, Coralville, and Ankeny. All locations are family-owned and operated by members in their respective communities, fitting you for life celebrations. Online at skeffingtons.com.
Thank you to Mercy One for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. From the cardiovascular experts at the Iowa Heart Center to the pediatric services of Mercy Children's Hospital and Clinics, Mercy provides complete care for Central Iowa's adults and children with more than 50 primary care and specialty clinics in the Des Moines area. Find a convenient Mercy One location near you. Online at mercydesmoines.org.
Here's your forecast on Iowa Catholic Radio. A little bit of low pressure moving through the area today, so it'll be cloudy. No rain or snow, though. Our high around 32. Cloudy and about 20 overnight. Cloudy, breezy, and 40 tomorrow. The weather is brought to you by Rock Valley Physical Therapy. Outstanding outpatient physical therapy and sports medicine rehabilitation with 7 convenient locations in the Des Moines metro and southwest Iowa area. I'm meteorologist Steve Hamilton on Iowa Catholic Radio.
And you're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. We are back with Benjamin Zeisloft. I hope I pronounced that right, Benjamin, from Campus Reform.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's Zeisloft, so you were close.
Zeisloft, good. I sometimes mispronounce even my own name, so when I get other names, it's nice to know that I've done them correctly. First of all, you're from Campus Reform. Why don't you explain a little bit, because I think this is the first time you've been on our program, about what Campus Reform is and where you are. I know you're at the University of Pennsylvania at the Wharton School, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I'm a senior correspondent with the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform. So we cover liberal bias and abuse at America's universities.
Very good. Very good. And we got a couple of stories that you've written that we'd like to talk about. One has to do with the University of Iowa threatening probation for a dental student who criticized critical race theory. You want to kind of give us the thumbnail version of that story?
Absolutely, yeah. So University of Iowa's dental student, Michael Braze, responds to this university-wide email that essentially condemned President Trump's executive order against critical race theory in higher education. So he replied all. He gave a very detailed response, a very rational response, showing why it may not be the best idea for the university to pass this blanket commendation on Trump's executive order. And as a result, the administrators contacted him and summoned him to a disciplinary hearing. He asked for an attorney, and then actually that request was denied. So what he ended up doing is contacting several Iowa state legislators, and Steve Holt, one of the members of the state legislature, ended up talking to the university administration, which caused him to back down.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about this critical race theory, because we've talked about this before on the program. It has to do with a look at the history of the United States in terms of race and racial animosity, and it goes back to this 1619 program that's all the rage right now?
Right. So the critical race theory is essentially reshaping all of American history and all of life in general, really, to this racial conflict. You have oppressors and oppressees. So white people, of course, in the United States, white men especially, are going to be the oppressors, and then the oppressed will be African Americans, especially with the history of slavery we have. But really, it's all permeating. So it goes into, so if you hear folks calling like shampoo racist and like syrup racist in 2020, it's stemming from this ideology, this overemphasis on race. And of course, it's good to talk about racism and condemn racism, but what this does is it reframes all of life in terms of racial animosity.
Right, and that's why Abraham Lincoln is verboten to some of these people, because I guess he wasn't woke enough.
Absolutely, yes. So this ideology absolutely needs complete conformity, and the man who freed the slaves, that's not enough for them, even though he was far ahead of his time in terms of racial equality. So it's a constant system of penance and asking for forgiveness and never receiving it.
Okay, so the President of the United States issued an executive order, I guess it was back in October, something like that, demanding that academic institutions that receive federal aid not use critical race theory in their training and in their teaching. And this is what then that the University of Iowa School of Dentistry objected to.
Right. Yeah. So, President Trump's executive order essentially points out that these critical race theory trainings that are disguised as diversity and inclusion trainings are teaching students and administrators that America is deeply racist and sexist, that it's a nation that cannot be redeemed, and especially that certain races and sexes, white men and women, are going to be inherently racist and privileged no matter what they do. So the executive order is essentially pointing this out and saying that they're going to defund any university that tries to push it.
Right. And then our friend there, who is, I guess, a second-year student at the College of Dentistry, he objected to that and set out his position. And I don't think, from what I read in your story, that he did it in an undignified way. But all of a sudden, the university comes down on him and is threatening him with some type of retribution.
Exactly. Yeah. So his response is extremely rational, very thought out, very respectful too, and he invites other folks to weigh in. And even that wasn't enough. He receives this email summoning him to discipline, even though he's trying to just voice his view, and it's against the mainstream.
Right, because you can't contradict what they're saying. You have to be totally in on it, or you can be punished. You can be canceled.
Right.
Canceled, yes.
Exactly, yes.
Now, as you are looking at a lot of other college campuses and what they are doing, how unusual or how usual is this?
This actually did not, I don't think anything surprised me anymore, quite honestly. I've been writing for Campus Forum for 6 months, and I don't think anything could surprise me. I'm writing about instances like this every single day almost, where a student speaks up and it is canceled, or the university is pushing this critical race theory nonstop, ad nauseum. So this is very, very common.
Okay. And so for people, or especially parents, who are involved with students who are in situations like this, what does campus reform, or what can campus reform do to assist a student?
Right. So the Leadership Institute's campus reform, we have an anonymous tip line where you can submit instances like this. So if a parent or a student comes across an instance of liberal bias or abuse at one of their universities, they can submit a tip, and we can reach out to the student and cover the story for them. And we can also, so what is great about campus reform is that it brings things into the sunlight. So it brings it into national attention, instances like this where students are being canceled for respectfully stating their views that may happen to be outside the mainstream. Okay.
So can you refer to the students to legal help? Are you working with anybody go ahead.
Yeah, so we have good relationships with folks like the Alliance Defending Freedom, FIRE, which is an organization that fights for campus free speech. We certainly have those connections.
Okay, all right. And before we move on to the next story that you wrote about, how would somebody get a hold of campus reform? Is there a phone number or a web page that we want to refer people to?
Sure. You could visit campusreform.org, or you could follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Very good. Very good. All right. Now, the other story that you wrote about had to do with the Human Rights Campaign that released a proposal that would deny accreditation to religious colleges that do not have what they term non-discrimination policies and science-based curricula.
Right. So the Human Rights Campaign, their 2020 blueprint for LGBTQ equality is recommending that accrediting bodies do not accredit schools that, quote, discriminate or, quote, do not meet science-based curricula standards. And, of course, this is under the framework of LGBTQ rights. So really what they do mention actually specifically religious institutions. So what they have in view here is actually very similar to the critical race theory, where everything is hidden under the guise of diversity and inclusion. Of course, we want to be diverse and we want to be inclusive. But what they mean in this case by being anti-discriminatory or pro-science is really just anti-LGBTQ. They're adopting these phrases, discriminate and science-based, not defining them very carefully. So what they're really saying is that any school that doesn't conform to the LGBTQ agenda is going to get de-accredited and is going to lose credibility.
So what about a Catholic high school that will not open up their locker rooms or their shower facilities to people or to students of both sexes? We've seen this play out throughout the country lately, where LGBT people are asking that the locker rooms, for example, be open to anyone who claims to be that gender.
Right. So that would probably be an instance in which that would be lumped under the category of discrimination. And of course, it's not very well defined, and that's probably on purpose. But the net effect of that is the full force and weight of the federal government in the form of the Department of Education coming down the high school or the college that decides to venture outside of LGBTQ orthodoxy, and they're getting punished as a result.
Okay. Our co-host, Gina, who's sitting by here, has a daughter in high school. How's that make you feel, Gina?
Yeah, no, not very safe anyway, for sure. Maybe she'll stay online for the rest of her career.
Yeah.
So, Benjamin, I'm very curious about this human rights campaign. Who are they and how much influence do they have by suggesting these policy changes?
Yeah, they're by no means a fringe movement on the left. They're very much mainstream. They advise a lot of presidents and a lot of senators, congressmen on conforming to the LGBTQ agenda, passing bills and policies that support transgenderism, homosexuality, things like that.
So they're entrenched. They've been around a while, and our legislative bodies know them very well.
Yeah, certainly.
Will they have, I imagine that this is not just directed at the Department of Education, that there are other areas in the federal government that they'd like to influence. Have you seen any movement in any other direction?
Yeah, so actually the blueprint for LGBTQ equality covers several parts of the federal government. So there are recommendations for virtually every single branch. Of course, campus reform focus more on the implications for education, but they're essentially trying to pass, recommend policies that will implement every single part of the federal government.
And if universities don't adopt, if the Department of Education, and these are a whole lot of ifs, right? So the Department of Education needs to adopt the policy, and then the universities will have to implement them. What happens if the universities do not comply with these kinds of implementations?
Right. So the risk that universities that don't conform are taking is the loss of their accreditation. So the Department of Education or accrediting bodies would have to remove their, basically granting passage to the university as a legitimate institution. So actually, Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary President Al Mohler, he was commenting on this. He called it sinister. He called it a nuclear bomb, or I believe an atomic bomb for Christian seminaries and universities.
So it sounds to me like litigation might be in order after something like this takes effect.
Yeah, absolutely. We will almost certainly see this go to the courts in some way, shape, or form. Of course, as you said, this is dependent on the Biden administration actually adopting these policies. But I think we've seen the Biden administration give a lot of credence to the LGBTQ movement, even appointing folks like Pete Buttigieg and making this big show about him being allegedly the first openly gay cabinet member. So I think they're certainly they have their ear to this movement.
So so it could be the next forefront of the large. We just had a previous guest talk about the litigation with regards to the Obamacare, ACA health proposals from the Obama administration. This could also be something as large as that, but on the education front, not allowing our people of faith to be able to live their faith on their college campuses or in their college program.
Right. It has absolutely massive implications for the First Amendment in particular, with freedom of religion, freedom of speech.
Interesting. Well, we'll definitely have to follow this kind of policy progression throughout the next couple of years.
Yeah, this human rights
certainly.
campaign, how much influence do they have with the Biden administration? Do we know that?
I think it's hard to tell. But, I mean, there's certainly an institution that is quite influential on the left. There's no question there.
And that seems to be fairly influential with what Biden is starting to put together. If you start to look at some of his appointments, as we were talking about a few minutes ago with the other guest, especially Xavier Becerra as HHS secretary.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so certainly there are a lot of cabinet officials who are very much in line with this kind of ideology.
Okay. All right. I guess this report is going to the Biden administration, and they will, once they're installed, if they're installed, will make the final decision on it. And it looks like then we're going to have, if any part of this is adopted, that we're going to have a lot of litigation to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we see instances, I should also mention that we see instances of the LGBTQ agenda cracking down on students in universities all the time. So I've reported on several instances of this over the past year or so, especially with students who are in class and they, they're forced to accept, they're forced to call their classmates and their professors by certain pronouns. So this is certainly, it goes to every single aspect of higher education, is this adoption of LGBTQ orthodoxy.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today and reporting on this, and we certainly recommend campus reform to anybody that might be listening to us today that might need some help or want to get some information out. Benjamin, we want to thank you for joining us. It's certainly a pleasure to have you. We'll have you again sometime when to talk about more stuff on college campuses. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Certainly. Thank you. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, and we will be right back after these messages.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. Information about Pharmatan and other products at imogeneingredients.com. Paul and Paul are members of St. Augustine's Knights of Columbus and encourage their brother knights to keep standing for their faith.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Storm Alert Weather is provided by Divine Treasures. Divine Treasures is a Catholic book and gift store serving the Des Moines community for over 25 years. Their mission is to help Catholics know, love, and keep their faith in our Lord Jesus Christ and His Church. Divine Treasures is where you can find great Catholic books, beautiful Bibles, rosaries, jewelry, statues, and religious gifts for those memorable events in your life. Divine Treasures, 5701 Hickman Road, Des Moines, 515-255-5230. Thank you to Divine Treasures for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Thank you to Mercy One for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. From the cardiovascular experts at the Iowa Heart Center to the pediatric services of Mercy Children's Hospital and Clinics, Mercy provides complete care for Central Iowa's adults and children with more than 50 primary care and specialty clinics in the Des Moines area. Find a convenient Mercy One location near you. Online at mercydesmoines.org.
What is the best gift ever? Giving a Catholic education is at the top of my list. Your contribution to CTO helps families send their children to our Catholic schools who otherwise could not afford it. In giving to CTO, you receive the best tax credits ever. Pledge or donate online at ctoiowa.org. The bottom line, it's for the kids and their future.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio's broadcast of Dowling Catholic sports and activities is provided by Kemin, a global ingredient manufacturer using science to transform the quality of life for 80% of the world. Kemin is on the leading edge of molecular science, manufacturing more than 500 specialty ingredients for the human and animal health and nutrition, pet food, aquaculture, nutraceutical, food technologies, crop technologies, and textile industries. Kemin strives to sustainably transform the quality of life every day for 80% of the world with their products and services. Kemin, using science to transform the world. Online at kemin.com.
Since 1924, St. Vincent de Paul has been helping those less fortunate work towards self-sufficiency. Last year, St. Vincent de Paul helped over 20,000 individuals with food, clothing, and shelter, while also offering classes in financial literacy, high school completion, career readiness, and prisoner re-entry. svdpdsm.org, 515-282-8327. Shop, donate, volunteer, serve. This message was brought to you by Homemakers Furniture.
And you're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. And Gina, another interesting program with a couple interesting guests today.
Well, I think it's prophetic. I think much of what we've talked about today is helpful for our listeners and for us to watch as we move into the next administration or the next 4 years. I think ideology is very different from the current ideology, and people of faith are discriminated against in any other kind of description of what's going on. They're disenfranchised from and told to leave their faith at the door, at the church door. We're back to that again.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's going to be a hard 4 years for good Catholics and good Christians because it seems like the deck is starting to get stacked against us here, and it's going to be even harder, I think, as the media touts Mr. Biden as a devout Catholic, that he has certainly some differences with the church over certain things, and if religious freedom becomes one of them, then that, I think, will probably help to undermine his administration. But that's, I suppose, left to be seen. I'm very concerned with some of the appointments that he's making, and I'm very concerned about what's going to be happening with this threat to accreditation of Christian schools that we talked about with Benjamin. I'm not sure that the whole proposal that this LGBT organization is promoting is going to be adopted in total by the new administration, but I think there certainly will be parts of it that will be, and they're going to be very problematic for us. And I think if you go back to the last few months, there have been a lot of things that we've been talking about here that have really come forward in the public policy, which is kind of scary. And so I think we've kind of given ample warning of some of these things, and we're going to keep on it and look at what's coming up. But I think we are looking at a time of tribulation for us. It's going to be difficult, and it's going to be difficult sometimes to defend our religious beliefs in light of what is happening in the secular society.
Exactly, and I do like that. It feels to me that the longer we do this show, the more there are defenders of the faith, and more especially defenders of the First Amendment and our rights under the First Amendment. One thing that makes me a little more confident, of course, my hope in God and His ability to change all things and protect us, but also the fact that we have more quote-unquote conservative judges that have been appointed over the last 4 years. I'm hoping that the courts will continue to defend our rights under the First Amendment moving forward, because it sounds like much of this will be questioned in the courts as they try to radically change some policies of our administration. and our federal rule.
And that came from both the discussions we had today, not only with Xavier Becerra, but also with what's going on with the LGBT groups that are offering their proposed changes to how schools are accredited. We're going to see a lot of litigation. So if anybody out there is thinking about studying law, this might be a good time to do it, because there's going to be a open field for lawyers for the next, at least constitutional lawyers for the next a couple of years anyway.
Plenty of opportunity for them. I was enheartened and I was glad, I guess, to see that the University of Iowa came to their senses when pointed out to them that this young student who was in his second year in the dentistry program asked for clarification on the email that came out condemning the president's executive order. And I read the email. He was incredibly inquisitive and respectful, and yet any attempted attack or perceived attack on liberalism automatically moves to a censorship or canceling of the individual who is on board or asking the questions. They accused him of unprofessional behavior, and on top of it, it couldn't have been any more professional, in my opinion. But I'm very glad to see that the university, when it was pointed out to the administration what had happened to this young student, that they did the right thing, and they understood the First Amendment and this student's rights. And what a great educational opportunity for the administration as well as the students at the University of Iowa to see this whole case progress.
Yeah, but one of the things to point out, though, is that this was pointed out to the university administration by one of the members of the legislature that holds the purse strings for the University of Iowa, too. So I'm sure that figured in a little bit. I don't know if the University of Iowa was more than just looking at this with, hey, we don't want to get into a fight with the legislature at this point. But they did back off, which is fine. But I do worry a little bit about what goes on, because this is like the third or fourth thing we've had involving the University of Iowa with different departments. We had it in the business school, we've had it other places, and it does start to scare me a little bit about what is going on there.
Exactly. And it's good that our students have advocates in these journalists, as long as they keep their First Amendment rights to write and report as freely as they can, and that our students have the opportunity to reach out for help in areas with these organizations and with their leadership that understand their rights.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And I think it looks pretty much like we're running out of time here again. So I just want to remind everybody that we're off now until the 7th of January. So we wish everybody a happy and peaceful Christmas and a very happy New Year. Obviously, the New Year has to be a little bit happier than the old year has. But anyway, let's finish with our prayer here. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
Amen.
And thank you for listening. And again, on behalf of the entire crew at Iowa Catholic Radio, have a blessed and peaceful Christmas holiday and enjoy your happy New Year. And like I say, I think hopefully 2021 will be a little bit better than 2020.
It will definitely be brighter.
Good. Merry Christmas. We will see you all, or talk to you all anyway, on January 7th. With that, God bless. Have a good and peaceful holiday season.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. Faith on Trial, with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano. Faith on Trial, Thursdays at 10 a.m. on Iowa Catholic Radio, iowacatholicradio.com, and the Iowa Catholic Radio app.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.